Our guest has been battling cancer virtually all his life. This is the Cancer Interviews podcast, and I'm your host, Bruce Morton. At approximately age 2, the parents of Jon Brent of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, started noticing a variety of symptoms that led to a diagnosis of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. This is a story of determination, and now's the time to hear it. So, Jon Brent, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Bruce, thank you so much for having me, my friend.
All right, and we want to start out the way we always do, and that's to learn a little bit about you, your life exclusive of cancer. So if you would, please tell us a bit about where you're from, what you do for work, and what you do for fun.
Okay, so I'm born and raised in Windsor, Ontario. We border Detroit, Michigan, which is hockey town, and we have got a pretty good hockey town here myself. So I've lived here virtually all my life. And except when I had to go away for school during that housing bubble back in 2007, 2008. And what do I do for fun? Man, I have so much fun. I like to play drums. I've played drums probably since I was 8 or 9 years old. Right now I'm on the board of directors in my local beer league, Ultimate Frisbee League, with a bunch of my best friends, because I'm not cleared for contact sports anymore. But I used to be a rough and tumble guy. Put me on the hockey rink or have me wrestling or doing a little mixed martial arts, but no more of that these days. I just run around in a park and catch a Frisbee.
Hockey, were you an enforcer?
Oh yeah, I played a little defense.
And who's your favorite drummer?
Ooh, that's a great question. Maybe the first one that comes to mind is Stuart Copeland, Sting and the Police.
All right. Well, let's get to your cancer journey now. Jon, your cancer symptoms materialized when you were so young. It was your parents who noticed them. What were those symptoms?
If you can believe it, Bruce, I was a maniac, one of those terrible twos as a toddler. So I was the kid running around in every grocery store, grabbing people's elbows, asking them what time it is, and then giving them a noogie. And then all of a sudden, right, you all of a sudden could take me to a grocery store. I was very calm. I was very lethargic. You could take me to the movies or the restaurant, and I would sit in place. And they thought that can't be right. Something's wrong with this kid. So they brought me in probably around Christmas time before I turned 3 years old for some blood work. And so the domino effect started. That revealed some really high white blood cell counts. And it just kind of cascaded into my lifelong journey with cancer and the symptoms and treatments thereafter.
Now, at the onset of these symptoms, I suspect you were too young to articulate them, but at what age could you tell your parents you were feeling pain?
Oh, no, I got a pretty healthy measuring stick early in life. So probably by the time I was 4 or 5, I was pretty articulate and able to describe all of my symptoms. I was in the hospital from the time I was 3 until 7 or 8.
And these symptoms led to what cancer diagnosis?
Yes, so I was diagnosed in 1995 with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and that's a blood cancer. At the time, there was not quite a high success rate or survival rate. So I went through 3 years of experimental chemo protocols. And I relapsed after those 3 years, and I required a bone marrow transplant, which I received on my dad's 40th birthday, November 13th, 1998. But it's been a long road since then. I'm one of only 2 survivors out of the 10 of us in some of those clinical trials.
These symptoms, this diagnosis, how did they affect you when you went to school? How did they affect you when you were in social situations?
That's an awesome question. Oh my gosh, what an insightful interview. Thanks, Bruce. They affected me almost in every way. I never really got socialized because I got removed from school before I went to preschool, kind of right before kindergarten and everything. And then all of a sudden, I just was plopped back in the world when you're supposed to know French and learn how to read Bonhomme de Neige, a little bit of Canadian curriculum there for you.
Okay, and by the way, we want to remind anybody watching or listening that we are confident you'll be able to learn some tips and tools to help you through your cancer journey. But first, we'd like to invite you to please give us a like, leave a comment or review below, and share this interview with your friends. Kindly click on the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified the next time we post a cancer interview. And if you or a loved one are facing a cancer diagnosis, please click on the link in the description and show notes below to check out our free guide, The Top 10 Things I Wish I Knew When I First Got Cancer. We also want to remind you we are not distributors of medical advice. If you seek medical advice, please contact a licensed healthcare professional. Now, Jon, at this point, you're still at a very early age, and you've experienced chemotherapy and bone marrow transplants. I want to start with the chemo first. What was the toughest part of the chemo for you?
Okay. And if you don't mind, I'll even circle back because one of your questions was about the social aspect of how it's affected me. I found that when I got back into the world, I was a very articulate, sarcastic, kind of angry little dude. And everyone else was just doing math homework or reading Harry Potter and things like that. You know, they had their own cliques, they had their own friend groups. So I kind of noticed my whole life that I've always been I was friends with the teachers more than I was friends with the students. And I kind of always was like a 50-year-old man in a 10-year-old man's body. And then can you please remind me of the next question you just asked? It was kind of all of the symptoms after the chemo and
yes, let's talk about the chemotherapy, if you can remember what kind of medications you went on, and when going through those medications, what was the toughest part of the chemotherapy experience?
Yeah, so I remember, I don't remember all of the words, but I can just tell you the ones that come to top of mind because there were a lot of experimental trials. Vincristine, Dexamethasone, Methotrexate. I know some of these might not even be exact chemos. Like I remember Prednisone, and everybody kind of in this world has that, but that's kind of a superhero steroid. I think the hardest part was just I got very tall, then I got short. I got wide, I got skinny. I lost my hair, it came back curly. I lost my hair, it came back blonde. Right now I'm a brunette, I guess, with a little bald spot in the back. And that made me I guess it just concerned me. I go, I don't see everybody else changing this frequently. All right, the anaphylactic shock from peg L-asparaginase, I remember being pretty rough. There's a lot of rough days, but from the chemotherapy, probably all the physical changes, right? There's nausea and there was constipation. It was never comfortable, but the physical stuff was pretty hard.
Well, now, Jon, I'm going to do some circling back and say that here you were going through all of this, and you weren't surrounded by adults. You were surrounded when you were at school by kids, and you don't need me to tell you that kids can be cruel. Did that exacerbate your experience when you were going through the hair loss and regaining curly hair, et cetera, et cetera?
You know, I think that you're right. Kids can be cruel, and they find what's different to highlight and question. I am blessed and very, very lucky that I have tremendous parents. My mom ended up actually even now is an early childhood educator, so she's been great at childhood brain development and social skills and how to and they really prepared me because they knew I was going to come back and be plopped into the world and be a little different than everybody else. So my mom taught me how to emotionally self-regulate and how to deflect these types of situations. My dad just taught me how to box. My dad taught me how to do some jiu-jitsu. My dad goes, he's going to be a little man with a big mouth. You're going to want to learn how to slip a punch, kiddo.
All right. And have you gone through one bone marrow transplant, or has there been more than one?
It's been the one bone marrow transplant after relapse. Thank goodness. Knock on wood here. I received it from an unrelated donor who lived in Waterloo, Ontario, if you'll believe it, on John Street. And she had signed up, years prior for a girl in her town that required one. I think through her church. We kind of ran a similar church drive in my town to get people to sign up to the bone marrow and stem cell registry. So I couldn't be more grateful for Melissa McTrack. Melissa McTrack Grimsby.
Well, let's talk a bit about that bone marrow transplant. We know from previous interviews we've done that they're not pleasant. They can be very painful. What was your experience like with the bone marrow transplant for the listener or viewer who may have to be going through that themselves?
Okay. Well, good news. It's significantly better these days. For the most part, you can, donors nowadays, in a lot of scenarios, can take a pill or a medicine that will help diffuse the T cells that are necessary to collect into your bloodstream. And it'd be like almost like donating blood or plasma. It just goes into a machine, apheresis, where it just like spins and spins. I can't remember if it's centripetal or centrifugal force, but whatever the outside one is. And it'll take out all your T cells and harvest it that way. Back when I had it, the bone marrow donation was like tapping a tree for sap. They go right into your hip bone. And I know my bone marrow donor still has pain these days from that. I have lots of pains, Bruce. I had shingles on treatment, chicken pox on treatment, lots of things because my immune system was like zero, like literally. So I was in an isolation room. I remember during shingles, I wanted the room, dark and without noise because it was such excruciating nerve pain. And then I had, because of the transplant, I had stage 4 graft versus host disease, which is a kind of a complication that can happen when you have any organ transplant. But because mine was the bone marrow, it affected my gut, liver, skin, lungs. Stage 5 would be heart. Luckily, I was only stage 4. So my ticker's doing okay for now.
That sounds like a great deal of pain. Are you pain-free today or close to it? Has there ever been a time in which you have been pain-free?
No. I would say I have a remarkable measuring tape, and I have wonderful pain management methods. I do a lot of stretching. I do a lot of physio. But pain has been and will likely always be in my life. I got very lucky again on the genetic lottery. My family just seems to be able to deal with pain a lot. I remember in high school I had a collapsed lung right before Southwestern Ontario tournament, and I broke my hand that tournament. All my fingers were pointed this way, but my wrist was pointed this way. And my wrestling coach gently said, "That's why God gave you 10, Brent. Get back up and wrestle." All right. Sounds good, sir.
That sounds like something a wrestling coach would say. Now, we've talked a bit about the physical part of this pain, but Jon, mentally and emotionally, what keeps you going?
Therapy. I would say my family keeps me going. The other patients and kind of patient advocacy keeps me going. I really spend a good amount of my time since I was 9 or 10 years old volunteering in various capacities. I've been a camp counselor. I've been a public speaker for the National or Canadian Blood Services. I'll kind of always be involved in this space in some sort of way. But it takes a mental toll to be in pain all the time. It takes a mental toll to, I think cancer survivors understand, we got to work a little harder to get the same thing. You got to put in a lot more effort. Sometimes you have a reduced timeline just to achieve the same results as all those normies.
Now, for somebody in your situation, support is so important. And I know that you have become affiliated with the support group ManUp to Cancer. If you would, tell us a bit about what ManUp to Cancer is about, what it's done for you, and what it can do for others.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be able to talk about them on your platform. This is it is a group for social support and mental health support for men that are going through cancer. So what we know is that typically men through a cancer diagnosis isolate, they self-isolate. And there's statistical proof, and I love stats, pure Vulcan logic on the numbers. There is just a proven, it's proven that men that don't isolate, that seek some support, that seek some help, some camaraderie, and are able to talk about life going through cancer, whether it's a man going through cancer that's directly affected the patient, or maybe he's in a caregiver role. Could be a son, a daughter, a wife, a spouse, a partner, a mom, a dad, a father. When you go through that and you have a space to talk to other men about kind of the unfairness, we call it howling in Man Up to Cancer. It's very wolf pack themed. So our Howling place is a great place for men to connect and kind of talk about all the ups and downs that they're going through as vulnerably as they need to be. Well, and then some of your other questions. What has it done for me? Oh my gosh. So I've been lucky enough to affiliate with them since January of this year. And Bruce, the camaraderie has been second to none. I've even met some of these guys in person back in June, and I'm going to be able to go to their annual gathering for almost 200 guys are going to Pennsylvania this September. To meet people in person that I've never met before, they feel like family. It's almost like you're at a big family reunion. You're meeting cousins you never knew you had.
All right. And if somebody would like to learn more about Man Up to Cancer and go to their website, what's the address of that site?
That's manuptocancer.org.
Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to spell it.
Oh, okay. Go right ahead.
ManUptocancer.org.
.org. Now, you were dealing with cancer as a child, and another group with which you have been affiliated is Childhood Cancer Canada. If you would tell us a bit about that, because we may have some parents listening, parents of kids who are battling cancer as you did. So Childhood Cancer Canada, what can it do?
That's a wonderful question, and you know what? I don't want to misspeak. I know that my mom was affiliated with them far more on the parental resources and what they can offer on that side, but certainly a quick Google search will show you those resources. I was involved with a lot of their fundraising. So one of their events is, I think I sat on the board for a little while for their scholarship fund. So certainly for parents that are looking for resources when their kids are going away to college and university, they do have a scholarship fund. I did a lot of fundraising through their Relay for Life, which is a kind of 24-hour walk around a track. Could be at a high school, it could be at a baseball diamond, something local, but it's a local fundraiser and charity event, all supporting childhood cancer research, their scholarship fund, and some of their other wonderful programming that I just can't pull off the top of my head.
Our guest is Jon Brent from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And Jon, we're getting ready to wrap up, but just as we start off our interviews from the same place, we end them from pretty much the same place. And I want to put you in this position. You have found yourself one-on-one, a private audience with someone who's just been diagnosed with your type of leukemia or any type of blood cancer or any type of cancer. This person may have a great deal of questions for you. You may have a great deal of answers. But if there's one overarching point you would want to make sure you got through to this person, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say you're not alone. This is the grief through a cancer diagnosis is nonlinear. So you're going to experience some sadness, some anger, lots of emotions. You don't have to experience it alone. You can be honest. You don't have to take the punch on the chin and pretend it doesn't hurt.
And that is in large part the message of the group that we mentioned earlier, Man Up to Cancer, and because it
yes, sir.
It channels the behavior of wolves as a group and how they come together and help the other wolves in the pack. And so while that applies to Man Up to Cancer, Jon, I suspect we could say that that would be a message that would apply to anybody battling cancer. Yes.
100%. I think that especially for myself and in my family, we were raised not to complain. And I learned through time that you don't have to complain, but you can acknowledge when things are unfair and when you could just use a little support. Everybody needs a friend. Everybody needs to be on a team. Excellent.
Jon Brent, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You have gone through a lot, and you're still going through a lot. And just based on our experience here, you're going through this, and you're addressing it with a smile. And that is great to see. That is great to see and hear. So, Jon, thanks so much for being with us on Cancer Interviews.
Thank you so much for having me, Bruce. It's been a pleasure. Love you, buddy.
You too, my friend. And we want to remind you, as we always do when we wrap up, that as Jon Brent said, and as articulated by the group ManUp to Cancer, you are not alone. If you are on a cancer journey, there are people like Jon, there are groups like ManUp to Cancer, and Childhood Cancer Canada that are there to help. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.